All right, guys, it is time. Week 3 is upon us. I'm excited. I'm hoping to come back with a win this week after a pretty upsetting loss last week against Vincent. We talked about it a lot. Vincent played really, really well, but that was just such a good match. It's a hard one to lose when it's that close. And so I'm hoping that I have better luck this week against Joel. Joel has an interesting team against mine. I think a lot of my team is kind of split awkwardly down the middle in terms of like it does really, really well against certain Pokemon that he has, but then just kind of gets mollywopped by other things that he could potentially bring. And so I had a couple of difficult decisions to make as far as what I'm bringing and why I'm bringing it. And so I'm gonna hope that I got the right team in place, for my match with Joel. And so I'm going to go ahead and break it down for you guys. So first up, we got Grapes, the Terrakion. With that Porygon 2 on his team, Terrakion has to come. Like, it just has to. So I'm bringing Terrakion. It does a lot of good damage to pretty much anything. Close combat, like I said, is there pretty much specifically for that Porygon 2. Stone Edge gets me some super effective damage against things like the Victini and the Gyarados, things like that. Poison Jab is there in case he wants to switch in that Sylveon to, take the close combats and stuff like that. Poison Jab does a little bit more than Stone Edge. Swords Dance, if I can get up a Swords Dance, and I'm not, toxic or thunder waved or anything to that effect, then, Terrakion just kind of goes in and does massive, massive, massive damage here. Max attack just to hit as hard as possible. This 192 in speed, Jolly Nature here. This means that I outspeed everything that is not the Regieleki and is not the Lycanroc. Both of those guys have higher base speed than me and would outspeed me pretty much no matter what I did. Now I'm going to have to be wary of like some Choice Scarfers because he's got a couple of really good options for Choice Scarf this week. I could see Victini as being a possible Choice Scarfer. Flygon, maybe even Gyarados. I think Gyarados makes more sense as a Dragon Dance set, but he could go Choice Scarf. Choice Scarf Moxie is an option with that as well. And so those are all, potential Choice Scarf. Even Goodra makes a little bit of sense, but I'm not as scared of Goodra being Choice Scarfed. And so I need to make sure that I am not caught off guard by any of those Choice Scarfers because that would be unfortunate. But other than those Choice Scarfers and obviously the Regieleki and the Lycanroc, Terrakion outspeeds everything on Joel's team with this set. So Terrakion hopefully is going to put in some work. I'm bringing Latifa, the Nidoqueen here, Nidoqueen Latifa. This is one of those Pokemon that matches up better or worse depending upon what he brings. I think this is a pretty fully offensive set with the Sheer Force Life Orb. There are some things that Nidoqueen really, really does well against, but then there are things that, just kind of hit it pretty hard also. And so I think with Nidoqueen, I'm going to have to be on my game as far as making predictions and stuff like that, because I think with the coverage that Nidoqueen gets, it has some potential to force some switches. And if I can catch, certain things on a switch with Nidoqueen, then that would be kind of the ideal scenario, like specifically with like moves like Earth Power, with a levitating Flygon and 2 flyers in the Celesteela and the Gyarados. Those could all 3 be a very easy switch into an expected Earth Power. So if I can predict that and kind of go for Ice Beam on the Flygon or Thunderbolt on the Gyarados or Celesteela, I could get some massive damage there. And kind of, make those things a lot less of a problem. Thunderbolt would one-shot the Gyarados in pretty much all occasions, I believe. And then Ice Beam, the same thing with the Flygon. So Latifa's got an interesting matchup, but I couldn't not bring it That Sylveon is kind of a significant problem if it gets to, I had an original version of the team that did not have Nidoqueen on it, and Sylveon was just too much of a problem, and so I wanted to make sure to bring this. Even if all it does is kind of check the Sylveon, I think that's a, a worthwhile bring in that regard, and so we got Latifa here, the Nidoqueen. Earth Power does really well against the Victini and the Lycanroc, the Regieleki, things like that. Sludge Wave, like I said, primarily for the Sylveon. Ice Beam does well against things like the Venusaur and the Flygon. Thunderbolt is there for the and the Goodra. Ice Beam does well against the Goodra. Thunderbolt for the Gyarados and the Celesteela. Max offensive presence here on the special attack. This 36 in speed makes sure that I outspeed a non-invested Venusaur. If that is something that he brings. I was going to just go max HP, but I think going max HP doesn't help me live, really any better than this particular amount in HP, and so I put the rest in speed just on the off chance that I could outspeed that Venusaur if it is not invested. I don't know if he brings Venusaur, but if he does, I wanted to make sure that I could outspeed it and not be, subject to, whatever he may bring on that Venusaur. Like, I know it gets things like Knock Off and Earthquake, and I don't want to lose my Life Orb or take Earthquake damage. I also don't want to get put to sleep or just hit with, a Giga Drain and let him get health back. So, Latifa is coming this week, and hopefully I can let it do some work there. We got Flap. I'm bringing a Choice Scarf Zapdos this week. I'm bringing max speed so that I can speed tie, with all those other base 100s. Flygon's base 100, Victini's base 100, things like that. I'm bringing Choice Scarf because I wanted to have something I can switch into a after a Dragon Dancing Gyarados. Like if he gets a Dragon Dance up, he pretty much outspeeds my whole team with the exception of this Choice Scarf Zapdos. And so if I can bring it in and just kind of get a Choice Scarf Thunderbolt off, then I can kind of just nuke the Gyarados. And so this outspeeds, again, pretty much everything that's not also Choice Scarfed. I don't think he would bring like a Choice Scarf Lycanroc or anything like that. And so this would outspeed that Lycanroc, provided he's not going for the Accelerock and things like that. So Thunderbolt, like I said, really good for the damage on the Celesteela and the Gyarados, as well as anything that just doesn't resist or is immune. U-turn for a little bit of momentum. I have U-turn and Volt Switch just because I would rather hit Volt Switch on anything that's not Flygon, but I don't know if he brings Flygon. I don't want to go for Volt Switch and have him switch that in for free and then me get stuck. And so I have U-turn if I need to hit that if the Flygon is present in this match. I have both momentum options there just as kind of a fail-safe because I don't really need the other coverage move because I'm running extra sensory, which kind of does some super effective damage against things like the Venusaur and the Hitmontop and stuff like that. And so there wasn't really a time that I was going to really need to hit anything else. Hurricane was an option, but extra sensory hits the Hitmontop and the Venusaur super effectively, just like the Hurricane, and I don't have to worry about a miss. Heat Wave really only helps me against the things like the Celesteela and the Venusaur, which I have the extra sensory for the Venusaur and the Thunderbolt for the Celesteela. So there's really not a time I would need to hit Heat Wave. And so I elected to go U-turn over that instead. So this is my make sure I don't get swept by a Dragon Dancing Gyarados set. If he does get up 2 Dragon Dances, that would be, bad. That's a different conversation, but I imagine in most cases he would just Dragon Dance once and go for some of the Moxie boosts after that. I don't know that he would need to hit it twice. So this is kind of my solution if he gets up that speed boost there. So Flap. And again, this like I said, this would also speed tie with the potential Choice Scarf Flygon and the potential Choice Scarf Victini, so I can either, go for Thunderbolt or something like that against the Victini, or I can get out of there against the Flygon if I need to. So I'm bringing Zapdos, and then we got Idaho. I'm bringing Silvally Steel this week. This is another good switch in to the Sylveon if I need one. I think the Steel type, kind of helps me against that that Fairy typing there. It's also a pretty good switch in to the the Venusaur as well if he brings Venusaur. I'm running Parting Shot. Like I said, this is a defensive set. Parting Shot just kind of gets me out if I need to get a little bit of momentum. Like if I know that I'm forcing a switch or anything like that, kind of gets me some momentum there. Multi-attack, really good stab move, really good for the Sylveon, things like that. Toxic, if I could get a Toxic off, maybe on that Porygon or the Goodra or something like that, depending upon what situations arise, that might be helpful. I've got the Thunderbolt as well, just as another maybe unexpected way to hit the Gyarados. He's probably not expecting a Thunderbolt on Silvally Steel, and so maybe I can just kind of pop him in a way where he's not expecting it, and so I've got the Thunderbolt for that. And depending on what his Lycanroc set is, this could also kind of switch in on some of those moves from Lycanroc, because it does resist. It resists the rock moves, which it's going to be running. It resists the Play Rough, which it could be running for things like Haxorus. Could also be a good move against Terrakion. It resists the Zen Headbutt, Psychic Fang type moves, which it might be running for, again, things like the Terrakion. That's super effective against the Nidoqueen. The only move I'm really worried about is if he's got like a, Tough Claws, Life Orb, Close Combat does a lot, and I don't live that Close Combat after having taken the amount of damage I would take from like a resisted Stone Edge or something like that. So I'm hoping that he's running Drill Run over the Close Combat if that arises. I don't know that I would go this route. It just kind of depends on what I see. So I don't know that this would be the way that I would choose to tackle the Lycanroc anyway. But he can switch in on some of those moves. And I do live, the Stone Edge and the Drill Run, just not the Stone Edge. And then the Close Combat. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So hopefully Idaho can do something here. We got Little Bop. Little Bop's kind of my catch-all. It's a very versatile Pokemon. This week I'm bringing a more offensive set again, with some coverage moves here. Like I said, Ice Beam, obviously good for all the things that Ice Beam's good for. The Flygon, the Goodra, the Venusaur. Thunderbolt, again, for the Celesteela, the Gyarados. Psyshock over Psychic this week, because of things like that Goodra and that Sylveon. They both, and even potentially that Hitmontop. Hitmontop is a good Assault Vest user. Goodra could even be an Assault Vest user at times, depending on what kind of set he's running. So Psyshock does more damage to them in those instances. Sylveon also has a lot better special defense and physical defense, and so Psyshock is a better option for the Sylveon also. And then obviously, for things like the Venusaur and stuff like that. And so, and obviously U-turn is just kind of for momentum. That doesn't really get me a lot of damage, but it does let me get in and out. Expert Belt just to increase the damage output here. Mesprit has a weird speed tier matchup this week because all the things that Mesprit would most likely want to outspeed, it's just faster than Mesprit, and I didn't want to run like a Choice Scarf, like double Choice Scarfs or something like that, because Mesprit is not as fast as Gyarados. And so if he's running max speed Gyarados and I'm running max speed Mesprit with a Choice Scarf, if he gets up that Dragon Dance, he's going to outspeed me anyway. And so that would be a waste of a lot of speed or a lot of EV points. So I went the 4 here just to make sure that I could again outspeed, a non-invested Venusaur, things like that. and then obviously anything that Mesprit normally outspeeds. But the things like the Lycanroc and the Gyarados and the Flygon and the Victini, like those are going to outspeed me even if I went max speed. Those things are going to be faster than me no matter what, because they just are faster than me. And so I didn't want to waste all the speed points, so I put them in HP instead. So that is the little bop we're running here. Katara, I'm bringing a fully defensive Milotic this week with the Flame Orb and the Marvel Scale. This is going to be kind of my, switch into that Victini if it comes. I don't know what kind of set he might bring, but obviously like V Creates hurt every day of the week, no matter what you're bringing. You don't want to take a V Create, and so fully defensive Milotic here kind of takes those V Creates the best. I imagine he would be running Bolt Strike also, and so that's a thing to consider. But after the speed drop from the V Create, he's not in as good a position, and so that's something to keep in mind for him as well. And so, yeah, so we got Katari here, kind of basically to have a way to switch in on Victini that's just going for V Creates. A pretty decent switch into Waterfalls from Gyarados and things like that too. I don't have a lot I could do to Gyarados in return. I could always go for Toxic, or I could just kind of flip turn and get some momentum and get out into something that's a little bit better. But if Victini is on the team, then Milotic definitely needs to be there, and so we're bringing the defensive Milotic here. So this is kind of just my way to switch in and kind of take some of those hits. So that's the team I'm bringing. No Haxorus this week. I think with that Sylveon, that's kind of one of the risks that I run with having Haxorus and Terrakion on the teams at the same time, is that whatever fairy type my opponent has drafted is almost guaranteed to come. And I was talking to Vincent because I said that, but then both weeks nobody brought their fairy type, which just floored me both times. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know anything at all about Pokemon. But Drew didn't bring the Tapu Fini week 1, and then Vincent did not bring his Hatterene week 2. So this could be another scenario where I over prep for the fairy type, this case Sylveon, that's not even going to come, but you got to be prepared just in case. And again, kind of the same thing I've been saying, I would be really surprised if it did not come, just because of the Terrakion and the Haxorus. But we will see. That's my team. That's what I'm bringing and why I'm bringing it, and we'll get connected with Joel here in a little bit and hopefully give you guys a good match. So thanks for watching.